Imagine a forest where the trees are made of sharpened wood and the fruit is 20,000 rotting human corpses, a horrific highway of death stretching for kilometers. The year is 1462. Sultan Mehmed II, the conqueror of Constantinople, the most powerful ruler on earth, marches his unstoppable army toward the Wallachian capital. But at the border, he stops. He stares into this nightmare of impaled soldiers, women, and children, and for the first time in his life, the conqueror turns his entire army around and flees in sheer terror. This wasn't the work of a supernatural beast. It was the work of one man, a prince of a tiny, broken homeland. His enemies called him a monster. His people called him a savior. The world would remember him forever as Vlad the Impaler. But before the nightmares, before the blood, he was just a boy born into meat grinder.
To understand the monster, you must understand the world that broke him. In 1431, Europe was tearing itself apart. Squeezed between the massive iron fist of the Islamic Ottoman Empire and the ambitious Catholic Kingdom of Hungary lay Wallachia, a tiny buffer state of dark forests and blood-soaked soil. Into this chaos, Vlad III was born. His father was a fierce commander inducted into the Order of the Dragon, a secret society of Christian knights sworn to fight the Ottomans. In Latin, dragon was Draco. His father became known as Vlad Drac. His son, Dracula, the son of the dragon. Peace was a luxury Vlad never possessed. In 1442, the Ottoman Sultan lured Vlad's father into a trap. To buy his freedom and keep his throne, the father had to pay an unthinkable price. He traded away his own children. 11-year-old Vlad and his younger brother Radu were dragged deep into the heart of the Ottoman Empire as political hostages. It was a golden cage, but a cage nonetheless. For years, Vlad lived among his captors. He didn't just learn their language and tactics, he watched their executioners. He watched them drive wooden stakes through human bodies, leaving rebels to die a slow, agonizing death over days. Vlad stared into that cruelty, and he memorized it. Meanwhile, Radu broke. Radu converted to Islam, embraced Ottoman culture, and became the darling companion of the Sultan's heir, Prince Mehmed. But Vlad, wounding his hatred in total silence, he refused to bend. He grew sharper, colder, and more dangerous by the day. Then the world shattered. Word reached the prison walls from Wallachia. A coup had erupted. A rival faction of wealthy nobles, the Boyars, had ambushed and murdered Vlad's father. But what they did to his eldest brother Mircea was pure horror. The Boyars captured Mircea, blinded him with white-hot iron stakes, and buried him alive. At just 17 years old, Vlad Dracula was released into the wild. He was the rightful heir to a throne soaked in his family's blood. He had no army, no friends, and a heart completely consumed by a burning vow of revenge. If you can feel the tension building, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more dark historical epics, and comment below with the country you are watching from right now. Vlad's path to the throne was a vicious game of thrones. His first attempt lasted barely 2 months before he was hunted into exile.
For years he ran, survived border skirmishes, and made deals with the very empires that hated him. Finally, in 1456, at 25 years old, Vlad Dracula reclaimed his birthright. The Boyars thought they could control him like a puppet, just as they had done to his father. They were dead wrong. Around Easter of 1459, Vlad invited 200 noble Boyar families to a grand, lavish feast at his palace. They wore their finest clothes, laughing and drinking. Midway through the banquet, Vlad leaned forward, his eyes burning. He asked them a simple question. "How many princes have your families lived through?" The nobles chuckled, boasting of their political survival. Some said 10, some 30. Vlad's face turned to stone. These were the chameleons who kept destroying Wallachia. These were the men who buried his brother alive. On Vlad's signal, the door slammed shut. Armored guards flooded the hall. The older nobles were dragged outside and immediately driven onto stakes, their screams filling the night air. The younger nobles and their families were chained like beasts. Still dressed in their ruined festive clothing, they were marched into the freezing mountains and forced to rebuild Vlad's mountaintop fortress, Ponyari Castle, stone by stone with their bare hands. They worked until their clothes rotted off their backs and their chests collapsed from exhaustion. With internal dissent crushed, Vlad turned his terror outward. When Ottoman envoys arrived demanding tribute and refused to remove their turbans in his presence, Vlad took a hammer and nails and ordered the turbans nailed directly into their skulls. War was declared.
In the winter of 1461, Vlad crossed the Danube River, launching a devastating blitzkrieg into Ottoman territory. He slaughtered over 23,000 Ottoman subjects, proudly documenting the death toll. Enraged, Sultan Mehmed II raised a colossal army of 90,000 men to crush the prince. Vlad had only 30,000. He couldn't win a fair fight, so he turned the land itself into a weapon. Vlad ordered a scorched earth campaign. He burned his own villages, poisoned the wells, and drove the livestock into the mountains. The massive Ottoman army marched into a scorching, starving wasteland. Disease tore through their ranks, and every single night, Vlad's phantom cavalry struck from the shadows, throat-cutting and vanishing back into the dark forests. On June 17, 1462, Vlad executed his masterpiece of psychological warfare, the Night Attack of Târgoviște. Dressed in stolen Ottoman armor, Vlad personally led a suicide charge directly into the heart of the enemy camp under total darkness. Total chaos erupted. Ottoman soldiers slaughtered one another in the dark, unable to tell friend from foe. Vlad hunted for the Sultan himself, slicing his way all the way to the imperial tents, missing Mehmed by mere meters before retreating into the night. The shaken Sultan pressed on to the capital, desperate for a victory. That is when he reached the outskirts of the city and confronted the forest of the impaled. 20,000 Ottoman prisoners captured over years, standing on towering stakes. The stench was so putrid that seasoned soldiers vomited on their horses. Mehmed, the conqueror of empires, realized he wasn't fighting a man. He was fighting a force of pure, uncompromising terror. He ordered a full retreat.
Vlad had won an impossible victory, but the Sultan left behind a psychological weapon of his own, Radu, Vlad's handsome, compliant brother. Radu approached the exhausted Wallachian people with an offer. Submit to me and the nightmare ends. No more burning your crops, no more stakes. Weary of the endless blood, Vlad's support dissolved. His nobles betrayed him. Even the garrison at his prized Ponyari castle turned. Trapped and isolated, Vlad escaped through a secret mountain pass into Hungary, seeking aid from his ally, King Matthias Corvinus. Instead, the Hungarian king betrayed him, throwing Vlad into a prison cell for 12 long years. By 1476, the tides of war shifted again. Radu had died of illness, Wallachia was unstable, and Hungary needed a weapon against the Turks once more. Vlad was released, older, grayer, but no less terrifying. He seized his throne for a third time. It lasted only 2 months. In the winter of 1477, Vlad Dracula fell in battle against the Ottomans near Bucharest. Some say he was ambushed by the Turks. Others whisper he was betrayed and murdered by his own men. He was 45 years old. The final twist: the Ottomans severed his head, preserved it in honey, and sent it back to Constantinople. Sultan Mehmed ordered the head of the man who had terrified him displayed high on a wooden pole for all to see. The Impaler, impaled. Centuries later, an Irish author named Bram Stoker stumbled upon the name Dracula, son of the dragon, and used it for his immortal vampire. But the real Dracula didn't need supernatural powers to terrify. He was human, which makes his story infinitely more frightening. Was he a psychopathic monster or a desperate patriot doing the monstrous things required to save his people from total annihilation? History offers no easy answers. Vlad Dracula proved that if you wield cruelty ruthlessly enough, you can stop empires, shape history, and make your name immortal. But terror is a cold legacy. Thank you for watching. If this dark journey through history gripped you, make sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another thrilling story. Don't forget to comment below with your thoughts. Was Vlad Dracula a hero or a monster? See you in the next episode.